So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Tuesday, March the 1st, 2022. Welcome to March. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Michael is down in Sarasota, Florida, and he texted me a moment ago that he was going over to John's office, and if he could join us, that he would. So I'm not sure if he's going to get on or not. So if somebody has a question, press 1. And if you don't, I'm going to do a reading out of my book. So give just a moment. Nobody's pressing 1. Michael's not on yet. So one of the chapters in my book is called Be Aware. And it's part of, my book is broken into 3 sections. And one section is about my journey and some of my issues and things that have happened. Then the middle section is actually 3 chapters that are taken from some psychology papers that I wrote when I went back to college. And they're very relative to the book, and so I've included those. And then the last 3 are about the healing process. So this one chapter, and this is just from the rough draft of it, but it's called Be Aware. And becoming aware is a big one. I realized that there are several points that I need to strengthen and heal. The first one is to become aware of what is real. This sexual abuse that I experienced impacted many areas of my life outside of the bedroom. A good example of this, 44 years past the last event of abuse, and I was facilitating a breath session. There were several people in the room. People were paired up. And the lady that I was coaching started thrashing and screaming, and she was actually pulling out her hair. And I was attempting to hold her and speak calmly to her and to bring her back to actuality. And in this wild state, she was so much stronger than me. And I was concerned that she was going to hurt herself and hurt me. She was so activated by the reality in her mind that she was beyond reasoning, and her behavior was pure madness. While outwardly, I looked like I was in control. Inside, I was losing it. Interesting that my inside turmoil matched her outside behavior. Silently screaming, thrashing, and going insane and hurting myself. Pure madness. As soon as my partner, Michael, came over and took control of the situation, I fled and went upstairs to my room. I knew enough to know that in the state that I was in, that I would be no good to the other participants. I was physically shaking by now and in tears. I called a friend who happens to also be a psychologist, and I told him about the lady and the situation downstairs. He knew by my voice that I was lost in my own panic. He stopped me, knowing the situation upstairs was the only one that I could change. He said, "Jeanie, stop. Take 3 deep breaths." And he paused while I did that. Now look around the room that you are in and name 3 things that you can see. And he paused. When I named those, then he said, "Now name 3 things that you can hear." And he waited. "Now name 3 things you can feel." And he paused for me to answer. "Name 3 things that you can smell." Now breathe deeply. We did that all over again. When he finally was convinced that I was actually present, then he began to walk me through my thoughts that were behind my feeling of panic and fear. What came out of this process had nothing to do with the lady downstairs. But I recalled when my first husband had become so absorbed in his reality, and he would be crazy, and things would go out of my control, and I got physically hurt. I was not strong enough to defend, and talking did nothing to make a change in the resulting pain. My need to survive was strong, and the thought that I wouldn't make it was equally strong. I remained in that abusive situation for 3 years, and when I finally got out, I pushed all of those emotions and thoughts down deep, hoping to never go there again. I went about my life controlling as much as I could in my environment to stay safe. When things got beyond my control, fear or panic set in, often masked behind anger. I realized that is how he won over me, by exhibiting fierce anger. I despise the anger that comes up when I feel that I'm cornered and I need to come out fighting. When I feel the fear, my first instinct is to look for a reason to leave, whether it's to leave the bedroom, to leave the house, to leave my body. This is my default in order to protect myself. This lady downstairs was my perfect trigger. She outwardly portrayed what was inside me all those years. I know I must remove that pure madness in order to stop recreating it in my world. I must embrace it to heal it. I must give myself permission to feel what is real. Can I do that? Do I dare take new risks with intimacy? This doesn't mean just with a partner. There is intimacy in every relationship or friendship. Into me see. Do I let another person get close enough to see the real me? Can I ever trust another person with my being? The demands placed on me in that first marriage I perceived as a threat to my very survival, and so I became very independent and put up a false bravado to appear less desperate and vulnerable. That experience in the past, not the present moment, I must be willing to open to the possibility. I wanted that desperately then, but I was afraid. I felt I was trying to run a marathon, and yet I couldn't put one foot in front of the other to even get out of the starting gate. I needed to learn to take baby steps and realize that when a baby falls, it's part of its success in learning to walk. If it quit when it fell once, twice, 20 times, then it would never learn. A huge lesson for me was to slow down the inner chatter that is advising me of what was real, to not get lost in the past and confuse it with the present based on expectation and perception. Stay present, open my eyes, and breathe deeply. Excuse me, I just unplugged my phone. So that's one part of 7 part of that chapter. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has a comment or a question. And do you understand what I was saying about the present situation was really behind a filter of my past? And yes, there was something actually going on, and she was out of control. But what I was feeling, what I was experiencing, was my inner turmoil. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions or comments? Not. I'll go to the second section. So it is to become aware of the urge to withdraw or to leave. There is an immediate autobiological response to a perceived threat. The brain sends a signal and the pituitary and adrenals release stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, I can't pronounce it, norepinephrine. It's a fight or a flight hormone. Then there is the freeze response. When one believes that there is no use to fight or flee, then the body releases painkillers called endorphins and opiates, and the ability to appear dead, to disconnect. It's like what a possum does. One usually comes out of this state shaking and often with little memory of the event. When PTSD occurs, especially at night when the veil is more open to the unconscious and those memories flood forward, the freeze is what happened when I was being abused. I disassociated from my own body to not be present, to not experience the pain full force. So it was useful for surviving the onslaught and to distance myself from the memory. But the body remembers, and that cannot be changed by thinking it through or figuring it out. And he, my abuser, did not care if I was present or not. I was just a means to his release. He told me once when I locked myself in a bedroom that if I did not let him come in, that was fine. He would just go get a whore, and it was just all the same to him. That was within the first year of our marriage, and I stayed because my thought was that no one else would have me, especially now that I was used goods, quote unquote. So I depended on this survival skill and became hyper alert. Normally, after a trauma, there is the action of the parasympathetic nervous system that basically slows down the heart rate and sends a signal that the crisis has passed. Well, my abuse happened almost daily for 3 years, and the continual deluge of hormones and no calm time in between created a body burnout. The links were so strongly formed that when one file triggered, I immediately disassociated, and I'm not real sure that I ever re-entered form. What happens now when I withdraw? In my mind, it's still safety, but the reaction to others is different. Most will ask, what's wrong? Or where did you go? Or a penny for your thoughts. If they begin to push me, then I flip into the anger mode that I spoke about before. Yet now I think I am self-sabotaging as much as protecting myself. If I continue this behavior of leaving, am I going to eventually pass some limit on their part? Will they ultimately get tired of trying to help me in my process and do the same thing, withdraw or leave? It's easy for someone to say, I'm not him, take me out of the file that's in your head. It's not so easy to stay and trust for a different outcome. I realize I do need to create reality checks, like the Be Present exercise, and reinforce the differences in the current person and my former instead of going on the internal chaos. I also know that there is the fact of nonverbal body memory, amplified by the deluge of hormones, and this can't be changed by thoughts alone. However, being aware of the cue and the urge to leave is a first step toward breaking that connection, towards forgiveness. So again, that's the second section in that chapter. I will stop and wait and see if anybody has any comments. Does it ring a bell? Does it resonate? Has anybody been there, done that? Nobody's going to talk to me today, huh? Okay. I will go to the third section. So to become aware of the unreasonable drive to please others, I often lose sight of my authenticity. I give up who I am and what I want in order to be what I think that they want me to be and to do what they want me to do. Who are they? Everyone in my life. It began early with my family, and because I wanted a peaceful home, I took it on that I could keep everyone happy. Boy, did I overestimate my own power. No matter what I did, I could not please my parents, my grandmother, my brothers, at least not all the time. Then with my teachers from kindergarten to college, I would prove how valuable I was in their class by overachieving. Ultimately, I was proud of my own accomplishments, but they did not seem to change that much. My bosses, they realized I would do whatever was asked, and thus they asked a lot. I became overwhelmed, and the pattern became an expectation instead of an attaboy. Then my big wake-up call came. With my first husband, the drive to please him did not keep the abuse at bay, nor keep him happy. I eventually realized this was not a healthy way to maintain peace, nor to hold their relationship together. I would completely forget me in the equation. But then again, I would be safe. I need to remember me. I need to remember that I am love. I'm a being, not a thing, and I can live an inspired life. My giving to others and not receiving was and is out of balance. I have always felt if someone gave to me, then I needed to give back. And I am learning that while reciprocating is nice, it's not required. Receiving doesn't mean owing back. I am increasing my awareness of my own worth and to be open to receive. And again, I need to learn to have an accurate assessment of the present, removed from the past, and know it is okay to separate from unsafe situations or relationships. I need to continue doing my forgiveness work around being driven to please others and yet accept myself and be self-wise. So again, any questions? Hand is up. Thank you, and I believe that this is Susan. So 610, you're on there.
Hi, Jeanie. This is so powerful, what you've written. And I was writing you a text I was saying, don't expect us to say anything. None of us probably knows what to say. But I definitely want you to know, at least I'm here, and I'm sure many others are too. One question comes to mind. One comment first. I think all of us, maybe all humans, and maybe mostly women, but I'm not sure, feel that they have to please others and do what others want. It's almost like a cultural thing, and it's certainly not on the intense level that you're talking about, but it's there. But I had a question. Yes. You're talking about a situation when you were a grown woman, very young, yes, but was there anything in your early childhood which might have led you to accept this kind of treatment?
Actually, what mainly kept me there is that, one, I left home at 16. So all of this happened from 16 to 19. And
right.
That's when I was married, when I say I left home. And to admit what he was doing would basically be saying, you were right, I was wrong, I shouldn't have left home, I shouldn't have gotten married this young, and all of that. I never told anyone until actually my mom attended a women's intensive in June of 2017, passed away in September of that year. And that was the first women's intensive that she had come to. And afterwards, I shared with her what had happened. And, the look on her face was shock. And it was also kind of like, if I ever see him, I'm going to kill him, that kind of a look. But no one in my family had ever gotten divorced. There was no cousins, aunts, uncles, anybody that I knew of. And it was sort of like, am I going to be the first one to, get branded as, being the one that didn't stay in a marriage or whatever? The main reason I finally got out of it is I was pregnant, and in the 4th month of my pregnancy, I miscarried. And I had no clue where he was, because he would go out and be gone for weeks at a time and didn't want me to work, and he didn't want me to wear makeup, and he didn't want me to go out except to the grocery store. And he was dealing drugs, and, it was just craziness. And so I didn't know where he was, and I was in the process of losing this baby. And so I called my mom and dad, and they came and got me. I was like an hour away, and they came and got me, and they took me to the doctor, and then they brought me back to their house here. And then that afternoon I was in the hospital. And back then, they would keep you for almost a week. And now it's like in and out. But anyway, when I got out of the hospital, I still had not heard from him. And so I came back to Mom and Dad's house to recuperate. And he called me about 4 or 5 days after I got out of the hospital and said his parents were going to be out of town, and he was going to throw a party at their house, and did I want to come?
Oh, my God.
And I said, well, for your information, I just lost their child. And no, I don't want to come. And I hung up. And Mom told me that if I wanted to file for divorce, that she would help me get a lawyer.
Mm.
So she didn't know what all he had done to me prior to that, but she knew he wasn't present at a very crucial time in my life.
So my question, I thank you for saying all that, and it completes a picture. It sounds as if your husband dictated how much contact you'd have with your family, or maybe you didn't want contact with your family anyway.
A little bit of both, yeah.
Okay, so, and you said you left at 16. Was there a bad situation at home that interiorly forced you to leave in the first place? Were you getting away from an abusive situation, for instance, at home?
There was no physical abuse. And now I understand some of the things Mom was going through, but she was just always angry. And, it was almost like not necessarily angry at anybody in particular. She was just angry. And that's why Dad stayed gone a lot. And the clutter was crazy. I would straighten up one room so that if some friend wanted to come over, there would be one room that was a little bit clear where they could actually come sit down. And it was just like a continual, I kind of felt like Cinderella, like doing the cleaning and all of that. And all of my clothes were homemade. I never had anything store-bought. And I guess just in my mind as a 16-year-old, he was the first person that had paid any attention to me. And so in my mind, it was like, I better grab on to him because nobody else wants me. And,
oh, my God.
And so I didn't know that he was doing drugs. And, he put up a really good facade. And, like, when we were dating, it was like, lavished me with gifts. His mother actually bought me my first store-bought dress. And she actually bought the ring to put on my finger so that others would know that I was in a class. It's just, they were very wealthy and well-known in the city. And so that's a part of me, too, because a lot of this is coming out. I don't name him by name. But if anybody knows me, they will know who I'm talking about. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, my gosh, is there going to be repercussions from me telling this story? But,
oh, my God.
It's all true. And I have not seen them in, I saw him once after we divorced. His grandmother passed away and actually went to the funeral. And he remarried within 3 months of us divorcing. So, it's been a long time.
Wow. Well, this isn't supposed to be a psychotherapy session or anything, but the more you tell, the more interested I feel to find out who Jeanie was, the Jeanie who left at 16. Is also triggering for me because my daughter was in an abusive marriage for 25 years. It wasn't quite the same as yours. How could it be? All things like that are different, but it took her 25 years to get out of it for some of the same reasons you had. Plus, she was a priest, and she felt that having taken marriage vows, she wanted to honor them, and by then there were 3 children, and she got to that point instead of getting out earlier. And now she talks about it. She says, I was asleep, and so I'm thinking, you were asleep, you were disassociating, as you said. Right. I think she did a lot a lot of that too. His abuse was mainly verbal, and towards the little boys too, as you know. But
right.
I'm curious about why it takes so long for any of us to stand up enough for ourselves and to allow ourselves to be conscious enough to take a stand. And you didn't take a stand. And then when you were doing your worksheet, you were talking about your dad leaving and how your dad used to leave. And here's your husband who was leaving. And big issue.
Isn't it amazing then when you look at it that my immediate go-to is to leave. So it's like, you know, we do what we hate that they did.
Yep, exactly.
So I actually have another chapter that might answer that. This is actually one of the papers from my psychology class, and it's called A Journey to My Realization. And we were studying about, I'm trying to flip down and find the reference. Erik Erikson. He names stages of psychological development. And so this paper kind of goes along with it. And so I'll read part of it, and it probably will answer that question of who was I? So in my present work, I refer to a newborn baby as pure being or pure love. I can see the world, culture, family, friends, putting expectations on the small child, and the child begins to think that they are not enough and that they have to do something more to receive approval. Approval and love become intermingled, and the true meaning of each one vanishes. We all have gone through this, moving from the stage that I call being to the stage of non-being, and often a person gets lost in their non-being state, and people never experience their true self again. I was lost for many years, but I was blessed with many people who were there to support me as I made my way back to being a more conscious, even though not completely finished or complete, person. My life has been very much in alignment with Erik Erikson's stages of psychological development. As he explains, he lists 9 distinct stages and states that each one is shaped by a conflict or a crisis that has to be resolved before the person can fully enter into the next stage in life. In reading my story, you will join me in retracing the steps of the journey to my realization by the use of his theory. We will reflect back through some of the major events of my life and see how each phase impacted the next one and how I ultimately moved through the conflicts to be where I am today. Mom was from Kentucky, Dad was from Virginia, but both attended Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee, where they met for the first time. Mom and one of her college friends were on their way to church one evening when the rain started pouring down, and they ducked under the awning of a local movie theater. Standing under the awning was my dad and one of his college friends getting ready to go into the movie. Their friends knew each other and introduced them. They started dating, and within a year, they were married. They definitely had some challenges in the beginning. When my father graduated from college, he was almost immediately drafted and went off to war. My mother was getting ready to deliver my brother, their first child, and so she felt like she had to quit college. I arrived only 14 months later, and she never returned to complete her college. With Dad being away in service, my grandmother, my mother's mother, moved in to help out. Once Dad finished his time of service, we moved to the east coast of Virginia, and things began to settle into some semblance of normal. My 2 younger brothers came along 6 and 8 years after me, so we were almost like 2 different sets of kids. We did not have a lot of luxuries, but I think maybe the difficulties actually drew us closer. I don't remember a lot before the age of 5, but as far back as I can recall, we were a quote-unquote Christian home, and being loving was just how you acted towards one another. We never left home or went to bed without hugging and kissing everyone in the house, even if they were just there visiting. However, with all that love that was evident, I recall a time when I felt I was not loved the same as my older brother, and I began to mistrust the adults in my life. Without any explanation as to why, I did not trust my own feelings or my parents. This feeling of not being enough catapulted me into becoming a very independent child. I became what I call a human doer instead of a human being. I was always doing things to try to please everyone. Since I did not resolve the trust issue, I can see where that mistrust then followed me through the next stages of life. Although I was successful in being self-sufficient, I still felt a sense of doubt in my accomplishments. My life was emotional and automatic, not linear or logical. In hindsight, I see it was all just my own reality, and I realize now that my thoughts had no basis in what was actually going on in our family. We were all loved to the utmost by everyone else. There was no one left out, no one slighted. We lived and went to school in the city, but we had a farm in the country. We grew up knowing how to milk cows and bale hay and grate tobacco and feed chickens and gather eggs and slaughter our own cows and pigs. I think my family experienced the best of both worlds. My grandmother lived with us for over 20 years, and she and I shared a bedroom and a whole lot more. She was actually my go-to, my security. My three brothers had one room together. My parents had a room. Now, how 7 of us managed with bathroom is amazing to me. Mm-hmm. Granny took me with her wherever she went to visit her other children or siblings. We were very close. I always felt I was closer to her than my own parents. I felt like I could confide in her. I could complain, and she never told on me. Every summer we went to my other grandparents' house, my dad's parents, and worked on the farm. We worked the garden and helped with farm chores. They did not have running water, and I thought that was pretty cool to have to pump water from the well for drinking and washing. We had to take a bath in a galvanized tub sitting in the kitchen floor, and the toilet was an outhouse. We learned to be thankful for everything that we had. Whether we were in the city or in the country, there was always a lot of children around, and we would play all over the neighborhood way past dark. We always knew we were safe. We always would obey other kids' parents if we were playing in their yard, and everyone looked out for everyone else's children. Our community exemplified what is meant by the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. Sadly, it isn't always the case today. Adults may feel it isn't their place to correct another person's child, and kids may think they don't have to listen to someone who isn't their own parent. I was extremely successful in school and dealt with the academic demands that were placed on me. Stayed on honor roll and was one of the best students in the class, and yet once again I had feelings of inferiority. Then something happened when I was 11 years old that I did not understand, nor did I know how to deal with the changes in my life. Early puberty with no explanation as to what was going on brought tremendous embarrassment and confusion about my self-worth. I desperately wanted a relationship. But one obstacle, at least in my opinion, was that my parents did not allow me to participate in a lot of activities, dances, movies, things that other teens enjoyed. I could not wear makeup or shorts, and my clothes were all handmade. Now I see more accurately and realize I was really well liked by my peers, but I felt like I was different in so many ways. This resulted in a decreased vision. I lost sight of my own purpose. I felt so weird and left out. The feeling of being lost in this world was a driver for me to find acceptance somewhere. I locked onto the first guy that showed me attention and got married at the age of 16 and left home. You've heard the saying, out of the frying pan and into the fire? Well, that was my life between this stage and the next. I'm only halfway through that paper, so I'll stop right there first and see. So that was... my reality as a child was so different than what was actuality. And the things of, me thinking that I was so weird and different and unacceptable and unloved. And, it's like I felt like I was always in competition with my older brother. It didn't matter if I made honor roll. He would make who's who. It was like he was just always a step ahead. And so I think just searching for someone to accept me for me, and there again, my vision, I lost my vision, and what I thought my first husband was not true. So I was just blinded by what I wanted and not seeing what was really there.
Wow. So many questions. It's amazingly powerful what you're reading. The idea that a child who is so well loved and with so much variety and freedom offered and so much innate independence, or maybe it wasn't innate, but in any case, you grabbed it and ran with it. Where we get off track, how you got off track that far to not trust, it's a little scary to hear because it's almost as if it's impossible for a parent to be aware enough to be able to help a child like you who has every reason to be just fine. I mean, I wonder if there's something else that happened that would cause you to draw away from your sense of yourself as okay.
Yeah, I've often wondered that too, and thought about, even I haven't seemed to be able to get it doing, the breath or the worksheets or writing, so I don't know if it's something that I have got so locked down. There were a couple things that came to me during one of the breath sessions, and I don't know if they're memories or, if it really happened or I have no idea. But I know one is true. I was probably maybe 4 or 5, and I can remember Mom had, she didn't drive, and so when she would take us to the doctor or whatever for checkups, we had to ride the bus. And when we got back home, then Dad was working on the car, and I remember I was so excited, and I said, the doctor said that I was going to grow up to be a very pretty young lady, and I was just so excited that I had gotten that compliment. And Dad said, and I know I don't know, but he looked at me and he goes, yeah, pretty pigeon-toed.
I remember you told us about that, Jeanie.
I was and I am pigeon-toed. And Dad will comment, Aria is pigeon-toed. Ryan was. And Dad will see her walking and he'll go, oh, is she pigeon-toed? And I'm like, yes, and it's fine. She's also left-handed. And every time he sees her drawing or something, it's like, oh, is she lefty? It's like something's wrong with that. And when he does that, I don't know that he really means anything by it, but it still triggers in me, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's even got a little bit of anger to it,
I should think so. After, oh my goodness. What a story.
I know. And then another memory, and like I said, I don't know that it was true, but that there was something with that doctor too. And that maybe even as a little small child, and his offering a compliment about, you're going to grow up and be beautiful. And I wanted to hear that. Did he go beyond what a doctor is supposed to go beyond? I don't know. I've blocked that memory. But then I feel like there might be a link between receiving a compliment and allowing abuse. Just like I married at 16 because he was the first guy to pay attention to me. So then it would be, he was my husband, so it's okay for him to abuse me. I never would have thought of calling it rape.
Right.
Without getting graphic, one time after quite a bit of abuse, I had to go to the doctor. And he said, I can't believe that you're still married to him.
Wow.
By the shape that my body was in. And, a doctor today probably couldn't say something like that and get by with it. But So just,
Did that help you
some
get
connection.
away from your husband?
No, he didn't. He just, planted the seed that, you shouldn't be in this physical shape. You should be treated better. And I was basically swollen inside out. And when I got back home, even though I had just gone to the doctor to be checked out to see what could be done, he basically raped me when I got back home. And
Jeanie.
it's, it's like, how do you, but, then I think I've worked with people who are cutters. They cut themselves.
Yeah.
And what I have found just in working with the ones that I have worked with, it's like they do that because that is one pain that they can control to some degree.
Yeah.
Where their internal pain they can't control.
And
at some point I lost control. I lost control of all of it, physical, mental.
Yeah. I want to ask you, are you okay now?
How did
you find your way back?
Of it. It's still a process. One of the things that led us to recognize the disassociate, Michael talks about dissociation, which is basically shutting something off and saying, that's not mine, and so you can't see the truth in it. But disassociating is basically like you leave your body, like you hang out, in the near the ceiling or something and watch. But it's a way of pulling away so that you don't feel the full impact of what's going on physically. And we were in a restaurant, and Michael was one that he would ask me, a penny for your thoughts. And I'd look at him and say, I didn't have any. And after it happened a couple times, then we started actually kind of delving into it, like, okay, something just happened. So instead of trying to figure out where my thoughts went, because I really was blank, it would be more like that was a clue. We have file folders, so things get linked, whether it's a physical event happens and you link an emotional component to it and a spiritual component to it. It gets all linked together. And when one fires, they all fire. And so instead of trying to figure out where my thoughts were, we'd start looking at, okay, what just happened in the space? Did they just dim the lights, or did a certain music just come on, or did a certain build of a person just go by? And try to narrow down triggers, because something simple like, the lights dimming, and maybe that would be enough to trigger me into disassociating. Yeah. And so being able to be aware of my triggers was a step towards healing. And there are times, even when I was proofreading a couple chapters of my book, it was like it kind of sent me right back,
oh, brother, yeah.
But I think it has enabled me, one, to have compassion for other women or men. They're, not just women that go through it, but to be able to offer support because I've been there, and to say, hey, there is life on the other side of this. So, and then I shared not too long ago, that my mom had shared with me at the Women's Intensive that, her mom would leave her at the movie theaters and while she was at work. So, I guess they paid like a nickel and could watch movies all day or whatever. and that, men would, make some kind of move that put her into fear, and she would go spend the entire time crouched in the bathroom floor in a stall until it's time for her mom to get off work. So it's a generational thing somewhere.
Yeah.
And
right.
So that's why one reason the name of my book is Healing Generations, and we do it one breath at a time. And it actually started out with a still point session where I was a small Indian girl. And, if you ask me if I believe in past lives, I would great-great-great-grandmother or somebody that this happened to. I haven't been able to track that down, that there's truth to that. But, whatever it is, whether it was me or not, it's up for me to heal.
Wow. So to get to the point in your present life where you can trust, you get a toehold somewhere. Something really brought you back enough to have enough health. And to then
I have to give Michael credit for that, because, even like there was one time, this was before we were married, and I think I must have been taking him to the airport or somewhere. I was driving, and he had a cup of tea, and I hit a bump. I remember it was an entrance ramp onto the interstate, and I hit a bump, and his tea sloshed onto his pants. And, he even said something before I did. I looked at him, and he said there was such fear written in my face, like I thought he was going to, hit me or something, because, I thought it was my fault that the tea sloshed onto his leg. And, and that was like one of the first incidences then that he helped me to, just breathe. It's okay. No issue here. You're fine. I'm fine. And it was, I think that was one of the first ones of being able to say, okay, maybe I'm safe here.
Wow. And to have enough margin of sometime remembering that you had been safe at some point in your life so that you could gather yourself back, find your way back.
Right.
That's amazing.
Like one of the things that happened when I did finally leave that marriage is that next year they didn't make you sign I'm probably the reason they make you sign a contract, but back then they didn't. I moved 10 times in 1 year. The geographic cure. It might just be another apartment across town. I don't think until towards the end did I ever move more than 15 miles away, but it was like going to a new house to start over, that I would be safe.
Is that partly literally so that he couldn't find you, or you just needed to get out?
Yeah, part of it was, he knows where I am. I need to go somewhere else. And as far as I know, like I said, he got married 3 months later, and as far as I know, he never even looked for me. But
wow,
it's just,
I'm glad you're doing a book for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But this is amazing. How has it been going? You've been awfully busy.
Yeah, it has been crazy busy with Dad and everything. And then, like after the show, I'm going to go spend a couple hours with him. I hope to hear from the assisted living place and maybe get him settled. But back to the book, I've got probably 2/3 of it, maybe a little more than that, finished.
Mm-hmm. So it's at the stage where you feel as if you've got a hold of it. When I'm writing a piece of music, there'll be a point where I'm floating around, and suddenly it will go down, and I'll know, yay, I'm running now. This is a done deal. just a matter of following through now, but it's a thing. Whereas before, there's a while where you're hovering, and I wasn't sure I had anything going, but it sounds very much as if this has established itself, and it's just a matter of time and being able to concentrate on it.
Yeah, there for a while, it was, especially when we were on the road, and I got most of it done. We took almost like a sabbatical one time, and we stayed in one place in Ellington, Florida for several months. And I got a lot of it. That's when I actually first started writing it. And I got a lot done then because we weren't doing workshops or anything, and I didn't have any other commitments other than to Michael. And
you weren't doing the radio show yet?
Were we? Yeah, we were.
Oh, okay.
But
that's a big deal.
Other than that, yeah, it's an hour in the middle of the day. So,
I know.
But
it's a lot.
Yeah. But the last few days have been awesome healing for me.
Just recently, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the last few days doing the radio show with you.
Wow. I'm glad.
Towards the end of this paper, I just scrolled down because we only have just a few more minutes, but at this one part I say, the present stage has been one of the most fulfillments so far. I grew into wisdom, and through that growth, I've learned many valuable lessons. I know in my future, just as I feel today, I will be able to reflect back on my life with great contentment, joy, and wonder, and I will see how I was ultimately able to overcome the crisis of each stage and turn it into victory. My chosen path and passion is to assist others to move back to their being, as well as continue my own growth. I believe Daniel Levinson is accurate in the summation of his theory when he says the past and the future are in the present. There is always something for our continued growth in the present. We just need to look for the gift. I'm now in the process of this. When I wrote this, I was still in school. I'm in the process of earning my degree in psychology as the first step toward becoming a counselor so that I can take my work outside of the spiritual arena and reach more people. Richard Bach wrote in his book, The Bridge Across Forever, there are no mistakes. The events that we bring upon ourselves, no matter how unpleasant, are necessary in order to learn what we need to learn. Whatever steps we take, they're necessary to reach the places that we have chosen to go. Through all the challenges, the journey to my realization has been exactly what was needed, my gift, to bring me to where I am today. I am thankful for life, for my experiences, and for everyone whose path I have crossed, and for their continued love and support as I make my way back to being.
And so
thank you for being
what
part
are
of
the
that.
tears about, Jeanie? Are they
just
what are they about? Are you sad or glad?
These are gratitude. I'm glad I survived and made it to here, and that there is a brighter future.
Wow. And you wrote that at the end of writing your paper years ago?
Yeah, that was, well, see, I didn't go back to college until Ryan graduated. And so that was in 2010 that he graduated and got married, and then I went back to college. And we were on the road, and I had to turn in 3 papers a week. And I got my 4-year degree in 3.5 years while we were on the road traveling and doing workshops. So a lot of times I would be sitting in the back of the room only giving Michael half an ear while I was writing papers for school.
Wow.
And graduated summa cum laude.
Good for you, Jeanie.
Yeah.
Oh,
I loved learning. Yeah.
Well, so hearing all this, all these little strings of your life are some tying together. Remember that time you were working on the clutter in your house? And so now I can see where that came from. It's just fun to see the little ties going together. And then there were probably many, many more of those. But thanks for letting us all in on that.
And one of the things, I think I told you that I found a company that will take stuff that might either go to Goodwill or to the trash or whatever. And so I was cleaning out the shed up behind the house, and so we'd have more storage space to get some things out of the house and maybe up into there. And I mean, like, I've cleared out so much stuff, and it was good to just be able to put it out in the yard and then have them come get it.
Yeah.
So I am still working on clutter, and right now it's still Mom and Dad's stuff. It's like,
wow,
never ending. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is something. When you move back into your childhood home, and there's probably a lot of, I don't know what the word is, but memories leaking out of the walls. And
it's things like there were, and I'm not exaggerating, I bet there were 2,000 pencils and pens in cans. And some of them might not, the pencils might be 2 inches long, and it's like, why did you keep that? Or a WD-40 can that's empty sitting on the shelf. But
that was that era. I mean, you're younger than I am, but there was the Depression, and there was a whole generation of people that didn't throw anything away.
Yeah, and I think that was part of Mom's, because she went through the Depression, and where they had what do they call them? There's stamps that they could use to get shoes, or stamps to get sugar, or ration stamps. And so she came up with that. I mean, I've heard her say that the only time they ever got chewing gum was at Christmas. And but actually, Aria heard Michael singing the song the other day. What was it? Does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight? And she looked at him like he was crazy. And I said, well, and I told her, I said, used to people didn't get chewing gum all the time. I said, and my mom, I've heard her talk about, that you did. You actually either stuck it on the bedpost, or while you were eating, you stuck it on the bottom edge of your plate or whatever, so that you could put it back in your mouth afterwards. And she goes, oh, gross.
Boy.
But it was a different era.
It was, yeah.
Well, you've helped take me to the end again. I thank you so much.
Oh, Jeanie, this was so incredible to hear your book. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
and I remember you calling a while back, and Michael had gone somewhere else, and you said, I wonder if he's left. And there again, of course you hadn't left, but you had triggered back into that, and I didn't know why you would be fearing that, but now I see.
Yeah.
So,
and there again, like if you look at, okay, that's what I fear the most, and yet that's the first thing I want to do when I feel pressured.
Right.
Is to leave, and we do. Just like that box said, we teach best what we most need to learn, what we accuse other people of doing. If we could just reflect the mirror, we could see that it's us.
Totally. Thank you, Jeanie. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And we're down to the last few seconds, so I'll talk to you later, and I'll just tell everybody, thank you for being with us, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world.